I've said in the past that 80-90% of all issues are usually because we had a breakdown in communication. It's not that the technology failed necessarily; it's that the communication failed. And that could be that maybe a developer and someone that's moving the change into production weren't communicating about when it should go in, or it could be that you were trying to understand the requirement from a person in the department, and that they told you one thing and you heard another, and you designed a third thing. So that's really the biggest breakdown that can take place is in communication.
It takes something a little more to lead with impact. I'm Lisa Nichols, author of Something Extra, and this podcast was inspired by our daughter Allie, whose additional chromosome has shaped how I see people in leadership. Each episode features conversations with inspiring leaders from around the world about what truly defines how they lead and serve others. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please consider leaving a 5-star review. It helps more people discover the show. And if you'd like to go deeper, my book, Something Extra, is available on Amazon and through other major book retailers. Today we are joined by Mark Haubein, the Senior Vice President of Information Technology at Rawlings Sporting Goods. Mark is an award-winning IT leader with a career built on leading major digital transformations and a master at turning heritage companies into modern tech-driven powerhouses. Well, Mark Haubein, welcome to the Something Extra podcast. I'm so delighted we can make it work.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to be here, that you're here as well. You and I know each other because we're both in the tech space.
That's right. And been bumping into each other in the halls of various conferences for years.
That's right. Exactly. So I'm excited for our listeners to learn from you. Now, I know that you are a Missouri boy, right?
I am Missouri born and bred. Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Centralia.
Yeah. Small town just north of Columbia. That's right.
Yeah. What was growing up like for you? Were there things growing up, Mark, that kind of informed who you are today?
Oh, I think for sure. I mean, certainly family, and then just the community itself. With a small town, you always have sort of you grow up with everybody, so you kind of know everybody, which is good and bad. That's it really helps form your character and your basic beliefs. And having a strong church community also was a big part of that.
Yeah, that's mine too. Grew up in a small town in Kentucky, and church was central, and just good values. And Mark, here's the other thing. I couldn't get away with anything because my parents knew everyone.
Right. Yep. Yeah. If you were the one stuck in a cornfield with your car, you knew the tow truck driver was going to call your folks, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. But I look back on that and, that's good. They have some degree of accountability and yeah.
Well, I think a lot of times people are looking for some sort of boundaries, right? I know that's certainly the case with kids as they're growing up, and I think that helps a lot to help define those early.
I think so too. Yeah, I'd love some time when I get extra margin, Mark, I'd love to do a whole study on people that came from small towns.
I agree. Yeah, that would be fascinating.
I mean, how many people do you and I know personally, just in our own circle? Todd Fenders. I mean, we know so many, right, that came out of small towns. And I think there's something to that. I really do. But I had Mark Lashoff on the podcast last week, and he was a NHL player, played for the Boston Bruins. Grew up in a small town in North New York, and, not a lot to do. His dad built an ice rink in the backyard.
And look what happened.
He became a National Hockey League player. So, but, let's get into what you're doing. I mean, you've been in IT leadership for 30 years. I think you started as a COBOL programmer.
I did. You're right. Yeah, it's sort of an accidental IT career in a lot of ways. I went to school for business, both undergraduate and graduate degrees, and then ended up getting recruited by Anderson Consulting at the time, which is now Accenture. And that's the first thing they did is they send you to boot camp and you learn how to COBOL program. So I ended up in IT somehow because of that.
Well, it's obviously worked out okay for you because
It's been pretty good. Yeah.
it's been good. What's been the most surprising thing on your journey? Yeah, I mean, 30 plus years, Mark.
Wow. Most surprising. I think it's learning to deal with how the pendulum swings back and forth. You when we started out, it was all about, hey, we're going to be, having the mainframes, and you're going to be programming on that. And then PCs came out and it became distributed computing, and now things are starting to switch back. As it goes toward cloud computing, it's watching that technology pendulum swing is just kind of fascinating and surprising. And I think the most recent surprise is how quickly AI is catching on. It's just
Oh my goodness.
really hard to keep track of and keep up with it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the thing that I'm thinking as you're talking, Mark, it certainly has kept you on your toes.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's never a day that's the same as the one before.
Yeah. No latitude there to get bored or, to stop
Very
growing. You
little.
gotta
That's
continue to
right.
grow, right?
Mhm.
I
That's
love
right.
that. I love that. Well, how do you think, like, because you've worked for some, like you said, Accenture, Anderson, now Accenture, Anheuser-Busch, Vijon, now you're at Rawlings.
Mhm.
How do you think, I mean, because I'm sure you are not the leader today that you were when you started 30 years ago.
Right.
What have been some of those things along the way, Mark, that have really shaped you as a leader?
Yeah, I think one of the big things, Lisa, is humility. I don't know that I was really all that good at that when I first came into the job
Yeah.
force. Because you're kind of taught when you're in school to strive for excellence and do all that type of thing. And then you get into the workforce, and you quickly learn that it's not all about you. It's about everybody around you and working as a team. And that took a few lessons along the way, but I think certainly that's one of the ones I learned as life went along.
Mhm. Has there been a common thread with all of those companies that you've worked for? I mean, I guess, yeah, I could surmise some things. Mark, one of the things is people.
Yeah, it's really all about people. One of the
It's all
things I've
about
learned,
people.
sure, one of the things I've learned is I like to build teams. So as long as I'm in an environment where I'm given sort of the latitude to do that, I usually can do well. And that's what I love to do, is build the teams up and get people working together and delivering things for the company. I mean, that's really where the value is at.
Right. Yeah. How have you, because again, with being at 30 years, I mean, maybe when you and I first started, Mark, it could have been more the command and control
Oh
type
yeah,
leadership.
absolutely.
How have you
Mhm.
seen it evolve? Because I certainly have. I've seen leadership evolve in the many years
Yeah, I
that I
mean, of course, I grew up in the partner type of situation with Anderson, and that was definitely kind of a command and control situation.
Mhm.
You listened to the partner, they gave you direction, and you went ahead. And I think that's definitely changed over the years because it's become much more of an empowerment situation. You still have someone that's there to bounce decisions off of, but teams are starting to work much more and more autonomously every day. And I think we're even seeing that, inside and outside of IT with, I mentioned AI earlier. That's creating sort of an autonomy that people haven't had. They have the ability to create their own agents and, deploy those and have those help them with their productivity and their teams. So I think that's been a real dramatic sea change that we're seeing over time.
Mhm. I think people enjoy that a lot more.
Yeah,
When it
most people do.
Yeah, it engages their minds and their hearts and their hands, and
Right.
I think about Daniel Pink. I don't know if you ever read his book Drive or not, but that's one of
I've
the
heard it.
things, that Daniel talks about there is people want autonomy
Yeah,
in what they're
absolutely.
doing. So, yeah, that's really good. Um, okay, so I know that you are super, I mean, people have said you're very detailed oriented, but then you
Sometimes.
are you're also described as a people oriented leader, Mark. So how do you balance performance driven with people focused?
Um, I think it's interesting to use performance and detailed, and those aren't always the same thing.
Mhm.
So for me, it's about listening to people and sitting down and building that relationship over time and making sure you understand where they're trying to go, both from a career standpoint and a project standpoint, whatever it is they're working on. And then just balancing those against the needs of the company of where we're trying to take us. How does their career path align? And
Mm-hmm.
if it doesn't, that's okay, because you're building leaders for themselves, for them to go out and perform better where they can be the best deployed.
Mm-hmm.
There have been many people that have left the fold, as it were, and gone out and been successful. Whether that's to become an entrepreneur, with their own firm, like you and Greg have done, or whether that's to go into a small company or a large company, whatever it might be that they can thrive at. I think that's the biggest reward for me, is seeing.
I love that. I love that you said that, Mark. I'll never forget having Jim Swanson, and you remember Jim Swanson, the global CIO for Bear. I'll never forget him saying this. He said, I want to train people really where they can go and they have the skills to go anywhere. Now,
Absolutely.
I want to build a culture where they don't want to go.
Right.
But I love what you just said. The reward is building the people, and regardless if they stay with
Hmm.
the company or not, right? And
Yeah,
there's an
absolutely.
impact there. There's
Yeah.
definitely an impact. Well,
Yeah.
now you're the SVP at Rawlings.
Mhm.
Rawlings is definitely an iconic brand. We
Absolutely.
see it on our bats, we see it on our balls, all of that. It was founded in 1887. Can you
Yeah,
tell our
just a bit
listeners?
ago.
Yeah, just a little bit ago. I mean, that's really remarkable. What, that's 140, almost 150 years?
Yeah. Hmm.
That's you Tell us a little bit, our listeners, a little bit of the history of Rawlings.
Wow. So I mean, Rawlings started off, as really just trying to make baseball gloves, and then all kinds of other different types of products. If you come into what we call our Rawlings Experience store here out at Westport, near our headquarters, you'll see all the different types of things that we used to make. Everything from golf clubs to boxing gloves. I mean, it's all over the map. It was about being involved in athletics. And I think over time things have shifted. Certainly, the late 50s, when the Gold Glove Award was started, that was a big iconic moment for us. And now we have an even bigger Gold Glove up on the roof of the building here
You
that
do.
yeah, that has allowed us to say, hey, yeah, we are here in St. Louis. I don't know how many people I've talked to who said, oh, I didn't realize Rawlings was in St. Louis. And I had the same reaction when I was recruited. I didn't realize it either, but it's been around since the late 1800s, so it's kind of crazy. Um, but yeah, it's been an interesting evolution, and Rawlings has changed a lot over the last probably 5 to 10 years as well, as we've had a chance to really focus on what we call diamond sports, so softball and baseball, and have kind of shed some of the other items in the portfolio, and that's really created a sort of a surge in people's demand for the product, and in our interest in continuing to provide them with the best products we can.
Yeah, I was thinking you're narrowing it down, but it's becoming more excellent and
Mhm.
very, what I wanna say, almost like there's some customization too that
Yeah,
goes
there
with your
absolutely is.
products, right?
Yeah, in fact, we just introduced a new 3D glove builder out on our website, so you can actually go out and not only customize your glove, but you can see it as you spin it and turn it and look at it at all angles, to see what it's really going to look like when you get it delivered.
Yeah, that's innovative. That's innovative. Well, let me ask you this. What has been your mission since stepping into the role? Like, tell me about what kinds of things you guys have done and
Sure. Yeah. Well, the biggest thing that we had to take on initially was the ERP project. So we had an old green screen AS400 based system that had been around for, I think, 23 years when we finally replaced it. We replaced it with a newer version of the same product. So it was somewhat familiar. So it wasn't as big a change as it could have been. But from a user experience, it was dramatically different, right? Because now you're logging into a web browser instead of having your function keys that you're using on a daily basis. And so that was a really big deal, and that took us until summer of 2024 when we finally brought that live. So that was the big initial push. But in addition to that, I mentioned earlier that I like to build teams, And that was a big sort of piece of why I was brought on board. Was we knew we needed to build up the IT department to the point where we could really deliver more projects for the company, because there was a lot of challenges that were ahead of us. Whether that's mergers and acquisitions or trying to get new products off the ground, we had to have a much more resilient and agile architecture that we could really move forward with. And in
Mm-hmm.
order to do that, we needed the people in place to make that happen. And we've been able to build the team up to do that, and partnered with all of our other departments to make sure that we're doing what they think should be done. And, that's really what it's all about.
Yeah. No, that's good. We could probably do a whole podcast just on that.
Probably could. Mhm.
The collaboration that has to happen and prioritization of projects, and there's
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot there.
Yeah. There
But
never seems to be an end to the number of ideas that the creative people around us can come up with, right?
exactly. So why don't you talk about that process? So you've got all these different people in the organization thinking that we should do this and this and this. I mean, what's the process that you go through, Mark, in prioritization?
Yeah, and we've been introducing a lot of that. One of the things that we put in place is a PMO to help with that process, to sort of make sure that intake process is funneled correctly. I think in the past it was a little bit more Wild West. Whoever could come up with a good idea, you'd move forward with it, but then you didn't necessarily know what the impact was on other initiatives that were already in
Mm,
flight. So now that we've got that process in place, we're getting a lot better at understanding that and sitting down and going, not only what is the budget, do we have the money, but and how long is it going to take, but what are the resources really that are going to be necessary to deliver it? Because it's not about, hey, I'm going to need 3 programmers and 2 business analysts and that type of thing. It's really more about, okay, who are those people from the other departments that we're going to need to pull in so that we
yes.
can deliver the project? Because they may already be decked against 2 or 3 things that are part of their real job instead of this project that we're trying to get off the ground. So
Hmm. Yeah, and everything comes at a cost to something else,
it
right?
really does. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Time is limited. That's
mhm.
for sure. It's one of the biggest constraints we've got.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the one thing that we can say about technology is it's going to change. And
Absolutely.
the rate of change, right?
Hmm.
It just seems like we're on this train that's just going so fast. So,
Yeah.
Mark, you're a
Faster
people.
every year.
Exactly. And especially
Hmm.
like you already said with AI, we don't even know what that's going to do, right? And how quickly we're going to move. But we've already talked about, that you've been described as this people-oriented leader. How do you bring people along when that rate of change is so fast? I mean, and that can be from a skilling issue, that can also be from just an adopting change. It's hard.
Yeah, it really is. And I think within my own department, I can do the things that I need to do from a development plan standpoint. And I can work with people to make sure they're getting the right training or that they're getting exposed to the new skill sets and those types of things. But the real challenge is how do we drive change across the company, and not really IT driving it, but us as an organization. How do we drive change as Rawlings? And that's where it really gets hard, because people get used to doing things a certain way, and convincing them to do things a different way is sometimes a little bit of a struggle. But I think it's just a matter of sitting down and understanding how people work and making sure
Mhm.
that you can explain to them how this could be better, and then kind of getting their buy-in for that. A lot of times, the biggest champions you can have are the people that were the hardest to convince.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. But if you can get them to understand the impact, if you can get them to understand the return
Right.
that you're gonna get, I mean, then they'll get on board and
Absolutely.
yeah, that's so good. Um, I already know the question to this, but I wanna ask you, I mean, what is, communication, what role does that have to play in the successful rollouts and,
It's not important at
it's
all.
not important,
No,
right?
not at
Yeah,
all.
just
It's probably the most important thing that we do. Uh,
yes.
I mean, the technology side can be a challenge, but it's not the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is always the people side of the equation,
Mhm.
and the biggest part of that is communication. I've said in the past that 80-90% of all issues are usually because we had a breakdown in communication. It's not that the technology failed necessarily, it's that the communication failed. And that
Mm-hmm.
could be that maybe a developer and a someone that's moving the change into production weren't communicating about when it should go in, or it could be that you were trying to understand the requirement from
Yes.
a person in the department, and that they told you one thing and you heard another, and you designed a third thing. So
Yes.
that's really the biggest breakdown that can take place is in communication.
Mark, it's so funny because I was just sitting thinking about this yesterday, and I was thinking, I think communication is the one thing that really covers a span of a lot of things. That can be in your family, that can be with a friendship, that can be IT. I mean, really, the communication. And I don't know who said this, but I've always loved this quote: just because you think communication happened doesn't mean that it actually did. There just may have
Yeah,
been a
absolutely.
transmission
Yeah,
of information, but it doesn't mean communication happened.
absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. One of my favorite quotes is, I think this is from Seven Habits by Stephen Covey, and it's seek first to understand and then to be understood.
Yes.
And I see far too often that we're trying to jump into a conversation because we're in solution mode. That's really prevalent in IT because that's what we do. We
Yes.
provide solutions. So it's really easy to get into the habit when you're having that conversation with someone to say, "Oh, okay, I think I know what you want to do." Well, wait a few minutes and make sure that you understand what they're really trying to do, and keep asking those questions to peel the onion back on the why they want to do things, because then you'll soon discover the real cause and the real reason, and then you can go forward.
Yeah. So good. So good. All right. I'm gonna ask you one more question, then we do need to take a quick break. But
Okay.
you talk about, I always say every organization has a culture.
Yep.
My friend Mark Miller says either you design it or it happens by accident. You'd rather design it, right?
Yeah.
But I've also said that IT, your department has a culture.
Yep. For
And
sure.
as a leader in IT, you want to have a good culture where you're a talent magnet. So I know that you have said, I have read that you want the IT organization at Rawlings to be a can-do culture. Can you dig into that a little bit? What does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of, again, back to listening and understanding what people are trying to get done. It's not just agreeing and saying yes. It's saying, I think we can do that, but let's talk about how we get there, because sometimes someone will come to you with a solution, and that may not be the right solution for the problem. It's really better to figure out what the problem is and then say, yeah, we can do this, and then making sure that people understand to have that attitude with, if somebody does come forward with a request, I think we can probably help you, but let's talk about how.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Mark, you and I both know Christy Barker
Yep,
with
very
Olin.
well.
And
Hmm.
I'll never forget her saying one time, one of the first questions that she asked out the gate is, what is the problem we're trying to solve?
Yep, that's a good line to have right there. Love it.
And just getting clarity on that
Hmm.
at the get go, because if you don't get clarity, you may be trying to solve a problem that really doesn't matter.
Yeah, making assumptions is the biggest problem, and a lot of times that's one of the biggest breakdowns in communication too. Is you've made an assumption about what someone needs or what they're trying to do, or what even the question is that they're asking. And if you
Yes.
don't ask those questions, it's real hard to get down to the root of it.
Yes. Very good. Well, we do need to take a quick break, and we'll be right
Okay.
back with Mark on the Something Extra podcast.
In business, the tendency is to seek out partners who are bigger, faster, stronger. When it comes to IT, you should be looking for smarter, faster, better. That's just what you'll find with the talented technologists at Technology Partners. Our experts develop custom solutions to tackle your most complex challenges, all to simplify your processes in the smartest, most efficient way possible. The time to be swift and nimble starts now. Go to technologypartners.net/solutions and see what's possible.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Something Extra podcast with my friend Mark. Mark, this has been so good. Thank you so much again for just sharing your wisdom. I know it's going to help our listeners, but let's talk about decision making and
Sure.
executive presence. It's been said of you that you stay calm under pressure.
Most of the time, I'd say that's true.
How do you do that? What's your secret? What's your mojo as far as staying calm under pressure?
That's really interesting. I'm not sure how to quite answer it. I'd say it's just a matter of if you're struggling to figure out what to say, don't say anything at
Mm,
first. Learn what the problem is and listen. So that's a part of it. I think another part of it is that if everybody else is panicking, there's no reason for you to add to that. So if you're better off just sitting back and saying, okay, what's the real problem? How do we solve it? And how do we move forward?
yeah. What about this, Mark? Because as I'm asking myself that question, I'm thinking, I know I don't always stay calm under pressure either, but I try.
Hmm.
And what I always go back to is, gosh, we got through that. We got through that hard season. We got through
Exactly.
that hard season. We'll get
Hmm.
through this one.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Yep.
uh, I think relying on how things have gone in the past
Yeah.
helps, right?
Oh, I think it really does, and I talk to my teams a lot about that type of thing, Lisa, is I think it's important to know where you're at on the journey and to look back every once in a while. Because
Hmm.
if you're in the heat of it, it's really easy to get frustrated and say, oh, we're just not making any progress. But if you take that step back and take a few minutes to just catch your breath and look back, you can go, okay, we really have made a lot of progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've still got some mountains to climb, but we're getting there, and we'll get there one step at a time. And usually that helps take care of that.
Yeah, I agree. And the other word of wisdom that I would give to leaders is when you have newer people on the team,
Hmm.
Mark, sometimes they don't have that tribal knowledge. They don't have that history.
Yeah,
So being able to tell those stories, I think is
yeah,
helpful too to
really does.
newer people and say, we've been here before. We've seen this before. Let me tell you what happened in whatever,
Right.
5
Yeah.
years ago.
Well, and I think that's one of the big pluses of some of the groups that we join here in St. Louis area too. And you and I are involved in several
Yes.
of those. I encourage the people on my team to do those types of things as well, because those war stories that you hear from other places, other companies, you got to go, okay, somebody else has dealt with this. I know they came out of it. We should be able to come out of it too. And
Mhm.
then you can share your experiences with others as well, and then they have the same kind of feedback. It's like, oh, okay, you guys went through that. Okay, well, we should be able to make it. What do you have any suggestions? And then you can kind of share those things back and forth. And as you bring in new people and you bring in experienced hires, they have those stories to share. And then, like you said, if you've got some newer people that maybe are fairly early on in their careers, you can try to impart some of those stories to them also. Storytelling is a really a big part of what we do, I think, especially once you get into leadership positions. It's not just about trying to get things done. It's trying to make sure that people understand the history and what's possible. You hear people talk about the art of the possible. Well, a lot of that wouldn't be possible if somebody hadn't already paved the way. So
That's
learning about that
yeah.
really helps.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought up one other thing. You said about these groups. I said, don't ever feel like you have to go these things alone either. If you don't have a
Exactly.
group, get into a group. If
Yeah.
you're here in St. Louis, or even if you're not, talk to Mark and I because we can get you plugged into
Oh,
Inspire
absolutely.
CIO. We can get
Yeah.
you plugged into HMG, the CIO group there. There's all
Mhm.
kinds of ways that you can get into a room with other people who've maybe
Yeah.
gone through what you are going through.
And I think you hit on another thing within that answer, Lisa, and that's you don't have to go alone through things, and it's not just about outside the company you're reaching out. It's even within. So,
Yes.
a lot of IT people are very focused on solutions, like we talked about earlier, but also wanting to be the expert and wanting to be the person that solves it and not wanting to ask for help. If I just work on this for another 15 or 20 minutes, I can figure this out. Okay. If you've already worked on something for 30 minutes, you probably should go, okay, let me talk to some of the other people on the team and see if they've run into this before. They may already have the solution that you just spent 30 minutes beating your head against the wall
Yes.
to try to solve. Or they may have an idea that you can work together and then collaborate to get that problem solved.
So good. So good. Well, let me ask you this. When you've got tough decisions to make and there's no clear answer, what's your process? What's the process that you go through, Mark?
Well, I think a lot, you write everything down, and if that's, getting in a room or a war room with people to figure things out and putting things up on a board, that's part of it. I think there's also a lot of internal conversation that goes on for myself. There's a lot of prayer that's involved there, and then just trying to find that peace and that calm center in whatever storm you're dealing with. Then you usually can figure it out if you sit down with enough smart people. They can help you get there.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you brought up something because I know faith is important to you. It's
Absolutely.
important to me too.
Mhm.
How does faith show up for you, Mark, like in your leadership?
Sure. I think it's pretty much on a daily basis. As I mentioned earlier, people are the hardest thing to deal with. Technology is easy. So having the faith to say, give me patience, give me peace, give me understanding, whatever it might be. I think those are really important conversations to have with whatever your brand of faith might be, and that can usually help center you and keep you calm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I would say that's probably one of the big reasons you're able to stay calm under pressure.
I would
Because
agree.
because you know you're not alone and you know that you've got a higher power that's helping you
Absolutely.
with that. Right.
Yep. hmm
So good. Um, all right. How do you personally keep your team aligned to the bigger picture? And I'm kind of going back to
Sure.
let's borrow from Simon, right?
Yeah.
Cousin Simon, start with why. People want to see the bigger picture. They need to understand how what they are doing, why it matters, how it
Yep.
maps to the bigger picture. What do
Yep.
you personally do to keep people aligned to the bigger picture?
Yeah, I think it's really important to have as much transparency as you can within a leadership role like this. So I have a kind of a stair step approach to communication around that. I'm involved with exec team meetings and whatever other leadership things that I get pulled into, but then being able to share what is not confidential from those meetings with my team, my direct reports, but then also the department as it's appropriate, I think is important. So that gives them a chance to hear what's happening, at the broader level, and
Mhm.
then talking to them about how what they're doing fits in. One of the things we do here at Rawlings that I've seen other companies do as well is trying to do that sort of cascading goal setting. So you make sure you set the goals at the corporate level, and then those goals cascade down through everybody. And then you try to tie those goals together so that you can see how what you're doing is leading to, better earnings or better sales or better processes that might be out there.
Mhm. But how about customer sat? I mean, do you guys, measure your customer satisfaction? Do you have those?
Yeah, we do. I would say it's probably not as objective as some other places. It's somewhat subjective,
Right.
certainly from an IT standpoint. From an overall company standpoint, obviously we do measure customer satisfaction and things like that, and we try to keep that as high as possible. But I think a lot of it is trying to make sure that you're touching base with other leaders or peers within the company to make sure that things are going smoothly. And if they're not,
Mhm.
try to address those as quickly as you can.
Right. Mark, how do you personally get feedback? Do you guys do like 360s
Yep.
or anything like that? Do you? Okay.
Yeah, I started that many years ago,
Okay.
probably at least two or three companies back. Uh, I try to do at least a level up, peers to the side, and a level below if people have direct reports, just so you can kind of get a pattern If you get a one-off on some of those, it's like, okay, well, I might mention that, but maybe that doesn't get written formally into a review. But if you
Right.
have a couple of people that say something similar, well, now you've got a pattern that you can see developing, and then you can try to address it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest, I would say, failures that we do a lot of times within review processes is people, are afraid to say something to a person they're reviewing, that especially if it's negative.
Yes.
And I think that's just such a disservice, not to bring those up as soon as you find out, because you don't want surprises, and you want to give people a chance to, turn a corner and change what they're doing. And, that's been some of the most rewarding things that I've seen is when I've been able to give feedback, whether it's from me or from other people, along those lines. It's constructive, and people go, wow, I didn't realize I was doing that, or I didn't realize what I was doing was perceived that way, which is really important. Perceptions are reality. One of my former leaders told me a long time ago, and I'm like, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So if you can see them, kind of absorb that and internalize it and then make changes, I mean, that's just a huge, huge moment there.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard. I mean, I had a leader on the podcast recently, Mark, and we were just talking about blind spots.
Yeah.
And people may not
Yeah. We
believe they
all
have
have them.
we all have them, right? And self-awareness is so important. I mean, there's been studies out there that say that 85% of people believe they're self-aware, but the studies show that only 10 to 15% really are.
That sounds about right.
So, I mean, it's nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, we all have them, and it's hard to see yourself. And so, um, yeah, I always say, and it's hard. It's not fun to deliver, but you can do it in a way that still maintains that person's dignity, I believe.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and I do believe if you really care about that person, you're not going to want them to stay where they are.
Yeah.
You're going
Yeah.
to
You
want them
need
to
them to
fix it.
grow and move. So you've got to be able to give them that
Yes.
direction.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
you've got to be able to receive it too. That's another hard part of it is it's not just
Oh,
delivery, it's being able to receive feedback. So
absolutely. Absolutely. And that requires humility. That requires, you know, courage, I think, to be able to accept it and receive it.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I
Well,
have a
that's one of the things about your book that I loved the most, Lisa, was that the whole first chapter was about humility.
yes,
I'm
it
like,
starts with that.
I'm going to love this book. This is
Yeah.
right up my alley. So
Yeah. Thank you so much for reading the book. And you've given me such wonderful encouragement, Mark, and it means the world to me. But let's talk about on the personal side.
okay.
So you've built this incredible career. Incredible career. You have a wife, Suzanne, 3 kids, Kaylin, Sienna, and Luke.
Mhm.
How have you balanced your career with your family life? And tell me.
Yeah, and I think you'll know. I mean, it's a challenge, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's making sure that they know they're important, but then also showing it by your actions. So, it working till 8 o'clock at night is probably not going to help with that. So I think you're
Yeah.
better off, work until a normal time, 5 or 6 o'clock, whatever that is for your schedule, and then you head home, and then you try to, decompress on the way home so that you can be present for your family when you get there. And if you have to pick up, your laptop for, a half an hour in the evening and answer those 4 emails that you couldn't get to during the day, then that's something you've got to do. But for the most part, I think it's really about making sure that you balance the time and you balance the quality of the time even more so.
Hmm. So setting boundaries.
Yeah, setting boundaries and then being present, I think, is a
Yes.
large part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. Well, I always say my children have been like one of my biggest classrooms.
Absolutely.
And I have adult children now, Mark, and they're
Hmm.
still
Same.
teaching me things. I'm still like having to grow because, parenting an adult child is very different than parenting a 3-year
Yeah,
old,
it
right?
is.
So,
It's a lot more fun in some respects.
yeah, I'm still learning though. I'm a work in
There you go.
progress, thank
Yeah.
goodness. I had a friend tell me recently, said, really, when your kids become adults, you move more, not just a coach, you move into consultant role.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so good, Mark, because
Yeah.
what is a consultant? A consultant is hired.
Yeah.
So you don't speak until you're hired.
That's a good point, Lisa. That's a very good point.
I know. I've never forgotten that. I just thought that was so good. But what
Yeah.
have your kids taught you about leadership?
I think one of the big things is right along those lines is when to step in and when not to. Sometimes you have to take a step back and let people work things out. I can still remember a time when my girls, who were only about 17 months apart, they were having a little tiff, and they were probably, I don't know, 10 or 12, something like that.
Mhm.
And, I was an only child growing up, so I'm not used to all that sibling back and forth and,
Yes.
and the stuff that goes into that. So I came up to the room and I said, "Hey, is there anything I can do?" Like, "Dad, we got this. You go away." I'm like, "Okay." And they did, they
They
worked it
worked
out.
it
It's
out.
fine. But, I think being able to apply that, I think even at work is important too. If you've got two people that are kind of, button heads a little bit, it's okay to step in and say, "Hey, why don't you guys take a break and then come back together and talk?" But letting them work it out first is usually a good solution,
Mhm.
or letting things play out even in a meeting. If it's a meeting with my leadership team and things are starting to get a little bit, more heated than usual.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a topic that everybody's really passionate about. It's okay to sit back and let the sparks fly for a little bit until things start to work their way out, and then say, "Okay, it seems like you guys have come up to a pretty good solution. Let's move forward."
Yeah, that's good. Well, let me ask you one more question, then I've got a little lightning round for you, and then we'll talk about
Oh,
something extra. But do you guys have any rituals or practices that you do as a family, Mark, to keep you grounded, to keep you connected to one another?
yep. Yeah, one of the things that I love, and this is really more of as the kids have gotten older thing, is when our oldest went off to college, Sienna, the first time, we made a deal before she left, and that's at least once a week we were going to connect. So pretty much, it's usually Sundays, sometime in the afternoon or evening, and we all have what we call a FamNet call, where everybody gets on, and that's continued. So it's been at least 8 years now that we've been doing that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's really fantastic because it's fun for us not only to just kind of check in and see how things are going, but also, sometimes my wife and I'll just sit back and watch the kids have a conversation as
Yeah.
opposed to us saying, "Hey, well, what did you do? Well, how are things going?" Sometimes it's fun just to have them, go off about the latest Marvel movie or whatever the case may be.
That's so cool. Well, here's what I say about that. It's intentional. Mark.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's intentional. I mean, just like we talked about building cultures, you've got a culture. You're either doing it by accident or by design. That's by
absolutely.
design with your family to keep your family connected. And
Yeah. Yeah, I
I
think
love
some of
it.
the benefits we found might have been accidental, but the intention of trying to stay connected was definitely there.
Yeah, I love it. Little lightning round for you. Do you have a morning routine?
Absolutely.
Can you tell
Oh,
me?
you want to know what it is? um, I get up about the same time every morning, and the first thing you do is you feed the animals. So I've got to feed the rabbit and the dog, and then I get to feed myself. I'm a slow up to speed person in the morning. I want to have that gradual ramp up. So I'll do that, and I'll do a little Bible study and eat my cereal, and then finally eventually get upstairs and take my shower and get off to work. So
Mhm.
it might be an hour and a half, 2 hours before I get out of the house, as opposed to my wife, who's usually 15 minutes before she needs to leave. That's when she gets up and
Oh
heads
my
off.
goodness. Oh my
She's
goodness.
one of those. She values her sleep. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
but
like
it
you.
all works.
I
Everybody's
like
got their
that.
own
Yeah,
routine.
everybody's got their own routine. What's your favorite way to learn and to grow?
Uh, I think probably more experientially than anything
Mhm.
else. I'm more likely to want to touch things or read them, read
Yes.
about it. Than I don't do as well if somebody's trying to teach me by speaking to me, because
Mhm.
it doesn't necessarily sink in. But if I can see it and touch it, then I
Yeah.
can usually
So
catch on.
books, you don't do audibles. You, like,
Yeah,
do the
exactly.
physical
I do
books.
a
Yeah,
lot of books. Yeah,
I
I
do
usually
too.
have at least one book on my desk that I'm reading that's for fun, and then there's at least two or three somewhere over there that I'm working my way through at some time for work. So
I gotcha. So, besides the Something Extra book being one of your favorites, what are you reading right now that you would recommend to our listeners?
So I just finished one of Brene Brown's books this year called Dare to Lead.
Yes, that's a good
I'd
one.
recommend that one strongly. It aligns really closely with what you've written about. I think the one of the big themes that she had was around vulnerability and how that
Yes.
is a very underutilized trait, but it should be utilized even more within leaders because I think that brings people credibility that you can't otherwise have. It's a lot about that same relationship building we were talking about earlier. The
Yeah.
more that you learn about someone, whether that's family life or what they like to do or how they want to have their career progress, all that stuff goes together, and then you can then share those stories. Here's what I've run into, because a lot of times the way people react at work is due to something that's happening outside of work.
Oh my goodness. I could not agree more. I was just talking to someone else about that, Mark. It's
Mm-hmm.
so true. And you're sitting there thinking it's about you, and it's really they've got
Yeah,
something totally different that they're dealing with. Maybe a
exactly.
sick parent or
Right.
a child that's struggling or what, and it's just good to know
Yeah.
those things, and you can then you're I think you're more empathic. I think um it goes back to Covey's seek to understand.
Yeah. It
Seek to
really is.
understand, right? So um, let me ask you this. Do you have a favorite way to re-energize?
Downtime alone.
Downtime alone. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I think we've all done, Myers-Briggs and
Yes.
introvert, extrovert, and all that kind of stuff. And what I thought was really fascinating about all that is, my classic understanding was an extrovert is someone who liked people, and an introvert is someone who didn't want to be around people. Well, I'm an introvert, but I love being around people, but it also drains my energy.
Yeah.
So if I need to recharge, I need to go read a book or go walk around in the woods or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Very good. You and I share something else besides being in technology. I'm an only child too, Mark.
Oh, there you
Yeah,
go.
I'm an
Well,
only child. I always wanted a big
right.
brother. I would tell my parents all the time, "I really want a big brother,"
Hmm.
that didn't happen for me, but yeah, we're both only kids. Um, all right. I ask every leader this. What is something extra, Mark, that you believe every leader needs?
Well, it's something that we've touched on a couple of times already, Lisa, and that's humility. I think
Yeah.
it's critical. Um, if you don't have that, I think it's really hard to have credibility with your folks. I think it's hard to inspire them to perform. It's hard to empower people. So to me, that's the most important piece.
Yeah. I agree. That's why it's the first chapter in my book.
There
Something
you go.
extra is humility.
Hmm.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mark. This has been so good. I just know that
Yeah, I
your
appreciate it.
story is going to help our listeners, and that's the whole objective here is to help other people on their journey. So, thank
Well,
you for
thank
sharing
you for the
yours.
opportunity, Lisa. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Something Extra with Lisa Nichols is a Technology Partners production. Copyright Technology Partners, Inc. 2019. To learn more about this week's guest, check out the show notes at tpi.co/podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, consider leaving us a review. Thank you for listening to Something Extra.